So, Keizo, talking about the WoW subscriptions, I just want to mention that you can use the BNet 2.0 money pool that you either upload your own money into or gain money from the Diablo 3 sale, auction house sales. You can actually use that to pay for your WoW subscription. So that's another way Blizzard's probably trying to supplement the potential WoW losses through when D3 comes out. So, what are you guys'
Hmm.
thoughts on paying for your WoW subscription through that?
It's a Blizzard gift card. That's what it is.
It's probably
Kind
not,
of.
not just WoW. You can probably buy games and
You can.
other content for other
I believe
games.
you can buy anything in their BNet store. So, I mean, it's basically a way for them to help recycle money back into their own bank.
Right.
You're proving my point.
You know what? Green
Kiza, what's
Heat.
that groan mean? What does that mean? Explain.
Explain my groan. My groan is towards Green Heat because he's being super negative about something that can potentially make more people play the game just because they want that.
If I'm not negative, who will be negative? Nobody. But I don't want to play.
Wow.
I don't want people who will play just because they could go, "Ooh, I can buy the gear." Because all people are bad. Almost anyone who actually you find buys gold or buys in-game items, those are typically the people who are not good.
Right.
It's just a statistic.
And
Well,
you see, the only thing that, the only aspect of the game in which buying gear can actually affect and make it harder for you to progress in is PvP. Like, if someone's just going
So,
to
like you
deck their
said,
character out.
yeah. So, like you said, Green Heat, you said typically the people who are bad are the ones that are buying the gear with real money. So, how do you think the real money auction house is going to affect the balance of PvP? So, you say someone who's really just on their own would be absolutely terrible, but they spend $300 on gear, and now they go in and steamroll you in the arena because you didn't spend any real money on your gear. Do you think that's going to happen, or do you think that even if you drop down a couple $100 on a character, you can still be beaten by people who maybe spend $5 or less on the RMAH?
Well, that just leads me back to what I was saying before. Um, yeah, okay, the guy spends all that money, but I still think that the skills are going to evolve. Not to be redundant, the skills are going to evolve a lot more skill. All your spells are you're gonna have to aim them, you're gonna have to hit them, you're gonna have to time them properly. So someone who didn't buy gear could still be better, yeah. So even though I'm negative, I still see that um, this in-game auction house is not going to have a huge effect. It'll have an effect, just not a huge effect on the PvP systems, and
I like the point
even
you
for the
make
most part,
where
PvE.
Yeah, I like the point you make where, I mean, if someone's that bad, buying gear won't let them beat someone who's decently skilled. But say two people have even skill level, and one guy just spent $500 on his gear, and
Then he should win.
you guys would otherwise be evenly matched. Do you think it's gonna throw off balance that much in the PvP system?
I think,
Yeah, I think if you're evenly skilled and some guy buys his gear, you're gonna lose. I don't like that. I think it's stupid, but I can deal with it.
it all just comes down to how big of a role gear is going to play in PvP and how available top end gear is in the auction house and how frequently like top tier items show up in the auction house and for what price. Because even a bad player who wants to get better gear isn't going to spend a lot of money on a good item. He might just
and this is all assuming that PvP gear will be the same as all the other gear. Think about WoW.
well
What's
they're
the
not
main stat on gear?
they're not making a
If they
PvP gear for Diablo 3. There's going to be no PvP
thank
oriented
the
gear.
Lord,
So there's no specific kind of gear. Okay.
It's
Well,
Brazil.
that's a question
is the
I
ruination
have
of a
for you
game.
guys. I have a question for you guys regarding gear then. Do you think, Keizo asked, what's the main stat on WoW gear for PvP? You would say resilience. Do you think that in Diablo 3, gear is going to be tailored a certain way where you would want to build tanky, you want to build all defensive, you want to survive as long as possible, or do you want to go like burst? Like, you know what, I'm going to one-shot this dude like 5 times in a row before he can even get to me.
I
Like,
hope
what do you
so.
think the style is going to be like?
Well, it's like I said earlier, where since there are no attributes anymore on gear or anything, Are people just going to stack like some sort of resistance or mana like shield type effects because there's really no other stat that'll negate damage like resilience did. So I don't know. I can't really say.
It's kind of
Shep, what
cool
are your
because it
thoughts?
it just adds another strat involved into PvP, and I kind of like that, you know. Um, whether you have to go like you were saying, like go tanky or go burst, and then you don't know what the other person has. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, you get to tailor your gear to your playstyle. Unlike in WoW, everyone
It's
had the
true.
same gear essentially. You tailor your gear to your playstyle. You say, I want to go tanky. Okay, you get those defensive items. You say, I want to go offensive. You get the items that help you increase your damage. And if Diablo 3 is going to be anything like Diablo 2, which obviously it should, there will be a plethora of items for you to choose from that'll allow you to adjust your playstyle.
And it just reverts back to your original point when we were talking long ago. It's not going to be as cookie cutter, and
Right.
hopefully that's true, and I hope that stands.
Yeah, I think they made a point about how there's going to be a lot of a lot more randomness in builds, than maybe D2, but I think that's just going to lead to a more exciting arena.
I
More
still think
unexpected
there's going to be
results.
gear. I still think there's going to be gear that everybody wants.
Obviously, it's always
Um,
going to be like that.
and I also think that the longer the game is out for, the more high-end gear you'll see. Obviously,
Yeah, the
but
game's
It'll
gonna
build
become
into
saturated
circulation.
at a certain point. Like
now
in
that
D2,
depends.
in
Yeah,
D2, um, at this point of the D2 stage, obviously 10 years is quite a long time for a game to be out. But at this point of this D2 stage, if say you pick up a unique Shaco, you're like, oh, this is pretty good. I could definitely PvP with this. It's to the point where that a Shaco you just leave on the ground because if you try to PvP with that, you're probably gonna get pooped on because if you don't have the godliest of the most godly gear in D2, you can't compete because it's so saturated with the best of the best of the best gear. Since
because
Diablo
of
3 is going to be new, well, because of bots and
yeah,
Chinese gold farmers. So hopefully in Diablo 3 they avoid bots and farmers like that, which will allow the use of lesser gear and actually be competitive because you don't have to only have the best gear in order to compete.
right.
It's
Like
kind of cool. Sorry, go right ahead, man.
sorry, it's like magic items will actually be more valuable because, like you said, the lesser gear will be okay for a while.
They they brought up an interesting point about how all right, so like you said, you pick up an ID Shaco, and there's like percentages of making it perfect or it's not so great, and it became to that stage where it's like, well, if it's not perfect, I don't care. But now they're like really bringing the crafting system into play, and I know we haven't talked about it, and I'm sure we will in future podcasts, and this is probably getting off tangent, but the crafting system is basically you're gonna have to sacrifice higher level items to make that item what you want it to. So it kind of brings into, creating that player economy. And that's why it's not going to be like, you get these epic awesome items and that's it. The game's over. Like this is kind of like forcing you to throw back and, throw away those items to make your new items better. So I think that's kind of a cool point.
Yeah, it's kind of like disenchanting items in WoW.
Yep.
You get that via salvaging.
Yeah, it's the new crafting system. Basically, you have to like
Yeah.
throw like higher resources in. So, it has a rolling system. So you're enhancing your gear, and it'll say you can put like 80 to 100 attack power on something. If craft, you make it better. So now you roll an 83. So now your gear's better. You do it again. You throw away more, of your resources. Okay, it doesn't get better, but that's putting that back into the trash and kind of bringing their gold system, to it goes into the economy, and so that brings the gold down, and that puts a more place on gold, rather than just money.
Well, hopefully gold will also mean more in Diablo 3 than it does in Diablo 2.
Oh well, that's not even a contest.
Yeah. Hmm. It'll be interesting to see um, if the gold buy stuff with gold will become more used, or if using real money will become more used on the auction house.